Okay, we're back again.
Yeah. Let us know how this sounds if we're yodeling. I'm going to put it on here as a post. This one sounds... Okay. We have 3 waiting, so hopefully the other ones will
Find their way over.
find their way over.
Looks like
There's
we're up
probably
to
no way
5.
to message.
Oh yeah, so it's on that little delay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let us know how this sounds. If we sound okay, or if we still sound shaky, wobbly, yodely.
Somebody's saying.
Still bad. Okay. Okay.
Let me.
Paul thinks it's the connection, like a server connection with YouTube.
It could be, but let me try one more thing real quick.
All right.
We'll see what happens. You good?
Isn't on?
It is now.
Okay.
Or it will be in a second.
I see a
There we
loading circle.
go. Okay.
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 It's back up. Let us know how the sound is now. What did you do? Adjust, Paul.
I restarted our software.
Restarted the software. Sometimes, you know.
You never know. When in doubt, reboot.
No.
When in doubt, reboot.
Much better. Yay! All right. I'll drink to that. Cheers.
Cheers. Where were we?
We were traveling to the beach.
Traveling to the beach.
Hopefully everybody else who was on the other... I see a lot of your guys' names. Thank you so much for checking back in.
We really had a good time talking about
Don't do that. Don't do that.
What are you talking
No,
about?
stop it. So,
Anyway.
yeah. I'm Jenny. This is Paul.
Hello.
We are with Vingo Artist Bar. We're the owners together. And
Yeah.
we are also... We're business partners.
Did you
at
guys
the
just see
business.
she hit me? I think that's abuse.
And we're
It's
business
on
partners in life for... Well, we've been married for... I always forget. Like, once we got past, 21 years.
We've been together for 26 years now, officially.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we've been together a long time, so we're at
Yeah.
the stage where we can occasionally tell the other one to,
Whatever.
whatever.
No, that's not true. She can tell me that all she wants, and I just pretty much gotta go, yes, ma'am. But anyway,
So, let's show the painting we're doing tonight.
yeah, I mean, how many people we got? It looks like 12 people have made it back over.
Nice. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
being
you,
patient.
guys. Oh, someone congratulate us. Thank you,
Woo!
Liz. Thank you,
Thank
Liz.
you. Can we celebrate? Yeah, anyway, all right, that's my celebration dance that we'll be using in the future for other things too, apparently. Anyway, so I've got 2 versions of this painting that I've done because I painted it originally, about 2 months ago?
Probably longer than that.
Maybe 3 months ago. And when I did that, I didn't. Of course, Jenny is very much a planner. She's one that will sit down and paint and take pictures of every single step. And I'm
Type A, baby.
And I'm the one who will just squirt some paint out on the palette and just start painting and then get done and be like, oh.
And have not taken any progress pictures. So.
And then I'll bring the painting home and Jenny will say, what colors did you use? And I go, well, I don't remember. But anyway, I actually had taken a picture of the palette when I did this one, but I had to redo it so we could take pictures for the instruction sheet. And when I redid it, just like it seems like this always happens when we paint.
You up the contrast.
When we paint it the second time, for some reason, the contrast gets a little bit more intense. So I'm going to switch over to our picture-in-picture mode, and you can see...
that's the first version.
This is the first version, and if you like... I think I'm going to probably work towards recreating the first version a little bit more than the version that is the other version, which...
Yeah, so he's going to pull the other...
Here's the other
remake.
version.
And you can see it's a lot darker sky, and
a lot
actually,
more contrast.
I like this contrast here some, but I like this wave better. Like it's more of a natural curve.
Exactly, and there's just some elements to it that, we called it Lavender Coast, and I really feel like this was actually inspired by our trip to Yachats for 4th of July a couple years ago. We saw the sunset that was very much like this, and anyway, everything you can do, it's really easy. The difference is you just use a little bit more of the lighter color you're using to tone things down. So,
it looks like it's white a lot.
A lot of it's white, and actually down in the ocean we use a lot of the Bahama blue to lighten things up. And that's kind of the wonderful thing about painting is every time it can be different, and every person's painting is going to be different because we all see the world differently, and that's what's wonderful about painting. You know, it's unlike Instagram where you've got 6 filters and everybody's got 6 filters to pick from. We've all got millions and millions of filters in our own eyes and brains that we get to pick from. So we can do whatever we want with this. But the basic idea of the painting is the same. So that's a good thing. And I think we're about ready to get started.
Yep. I'm just messaging my sister. She's late to the game.
You know, we're not going to wait for we don't wait for your sister
No,
on Christmas morning. We're not going to wait for her now.
That's true, yes. She's late. No, I think she's clicked on the other tutorial, so I will send her the,
Oh, yeah.
I will send her the link to this one. So let's go ahead and talk about our colors.
Yeah, let's talk about the colors. I'm
Because
going to
you
go
will
ahead.
just talk and talk and talk.
Oh, I love to talk. I've been out working.
Unless I get him moving on.
Jeez.
It's
Crack
true.
the whip. Oh, you get to hear yourself throwing her under the bus. That's great.
Great. Don't log on yet, Melissa.
All right, so this is our basic paints that we used in this painting, and as you can see, the painting has the appearance of having a lot of green tones and lavender tones and purples and things like that. And as you can see, the colors that we have in this painting are not purple and green.
They're basic mutations of the primary colors.
Yeah, pretty much. And there's a whole new theory about primary colors, which we'll talk about.
You don't have to talk about that.
No, not
right
going to
now.
talk about it tonight. I was going to say we can talk about it in another video.
I'll keep him going, you guys, because he will talk.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Well, I'm still thinking maybe more people might show up.
No,
Anyway.
I think we can move on now.
No, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Anyway, so let's just talk about it real quick. Let's pull out our inner Bob Ross and go around the palette real quick. I have on my palette, and Jenny and I are going to share, so it's going to be a little bit of paintbrush dueling in between us, and that's kind of always fun. Sometimes she'll block me and be like, no, you can't use that yet. Anyway, we've got Bahama Blue, which is our nice kind of a light, as you like to call it, Tiffany box blue. Mm-hmm. It's almost a robin egg blue, too.
Yeah.
You know? Our dark phthalo blue, which is really...
Indigo.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard color to describe.
Navy.
You know, it's not quite navy.
It's indigo.
It's a little bit more jewel tone, I think. White, obviously, we don't need to talk about white. Black, don't need to talk much about that. And phthalo red, which really looks very pink, and I feel like it's somewhere in the magenta range, but not quite. And
Between red and magenta, yeah.
yeah, kind of somewhere in between. It's a great color when you don't want to battle being quite as intense as bright red can be.
But you can also, if you just have primary red, you can make a very similar color to that with just a little white.
Yep, absolutely. And then we have our raw sienna, which is one of my favorite colors to use. I like the way it reacts with other colors.
My sister thinks you're drunk.
I have not had a single drink. I am drinking.
This is little sisters for you. Hi,
Yeah. Maybe she's not invited anymore.
She's joking.
I know.
She's joking.
All right, so we've been shipping out brushes, and people are getting their own brushes. We're not going to worry about the details of what size it is, what shape it is. Just use whatever
Small,
works.
medium, and large.
Yeah.
Whether you have round brushes or flat brushes.
We're going to be we use a 1-inch brush to start.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got something that's anywhere between a ½ inch to an inch, this will work. It'll work just fine. Anyway, and then looks like we've got like a kind of a number 8-ish size brush and a number 4. So, small, medium, and large. We're going to do most of this painting with our big brush. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's rinse it off.
Yeah, so you'll want to have a cup of water.
Mm-hmm.
We just use old mugs where the handle's broken off or whatever. And then a paper towel or some kind of paint rag.
Yep. So we're just going to start rinsing. It's always good to have
And a beverage. Let's toast.
I thought we did. Cheers to...
Cheers to you
succeeding.
guys.
And cheers to Melissa for calling people out for being drunk. All right. Drunk on water. That's good. Cheap lifestyle. Anyway, so we're going to start out with the golden glow of our sky. And to get that happening, I'm going to start out with...
Probably put it over here.
I'm going to start out with raw sienna. Just a little tiny bit on my brush. And I'm going to basically find about the middle of the canvas. And I'm just going to sketch in a little thin line of this raw sienna. Now, raw sienna is not yellow. It's a shade of brown. So the reason I like using this in skies...
Wait, you added white to it, but you didn't tell anyone.
Let me finish. Do you want to teach?
Sometimes.
Just let me teach. I've been doing this for a long time, too. Anyway, I like to use raw sienna because it doesn't... when it gets involved with the blues, it doesn't actually make green. It kind of lets the blues still be kind of bluish and kind of goes more into the gray tones, which works good. So I started out with that little tiny stripe of raw sienna, and I'm coming back with some white now. And I don't want this color to be super intense. So I bring the white in to help spread that color away from our horizon line. And I like to use in this, sometimes we're going for big choppy kind of brush strokes similar to like Impressionism. Today we're just kind of going for nice, comfortable, cozy brush strokes. And I'm going to turn off the Nikon. There we go. And now we just painting. And you don't have to be like real precise with this. If it feels like it's starting to get a little bit too white or you're really losing the color, then you can add just a little dab more of the raw sienna, which is what I did. I like to kind of remind people that to try to get your brush moving in different directions while you're doing this too. It's really easy as a right-handed person to always brush this direction. And it's really easy as a left-handed person to always brush this direction. So I really try to get the brush moving in different directions to kind of break that pattern up. I'm just going to kind of come up about 2 to 3 inches. If you went a little further than that, that's totally fine. Hum a little bit. We still sounding good, everybody?
Yeah, let us know if we're yodeling again.
I mean, you might find my voice annoying and irritating, but as long as I'm not yodeling, then we should be good. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of this paint too, and just a little bit right below that kind of horizon line, just kind of bring that color down, maybe about a ½ an inch or so. I'm just leaving that little hint of that kind of raw sienna just kind of hanging out, reminding us where that's at. So what I want you to think about this is kind of a nice warm glow going on in the sky. This isn't like this big stripe. I mean, it's going to be that way. It is what it is. All right. So that's our friendly warm glow that's comforting and soothing. It brings us the sense of zen and peace. Now we're going to get a little bit more aggressive. Rawr. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush off. We should all do that. And when we rinse our brushes, if you're new to painting, rinsing your brush isn't just sticking your brush in the jar and swirling it around. It's really kind of massaging the bristles against the bottom of the cup, I guess is a good word. And wiggling it around, it dislodges the pigment from the bristles, and then the water helps it flow away. So I'm going to rinse it off. Wipe excess water back into the jar. And then I just kind of pat it dry. And you'll notice that there really isn't a lot of paint that comes back with you. What we're going to do next is we're going to start working on our foundation for our cloud bank. That is what creates our lavender. And we're going to basically take 2 colors right now and we're going to mix them together. Actually, probably 3. And we're going to take, I guess I'll do this because I know you like to do this when we do this. I'm going to take a little bit of my phthalo red, a little tiny dot of my phthalo blue, maybe a little bit more. And this is something that I wish I could just tell you like, okay, there's an accurate measurement, but there isn't really. There can be, I guess, if we really wanted to get down into the microns of what's going on, but we don't know anyone's got time for that. So what I want to really encourage you to do is use your own eyes. Because as we're mixing this, we're kind of going for a nice, soft purple color. And it can be, I'm just right now, just using a little phthalo blue, a little phthalo red. And what I like to tell people is use your own eyes and look at it. If it feels like it's still too pink, add a little bit more blue. If it feels too blue, add a little bit more pink, or the phthalo red. It really doesn't matter. This is, I trust you, you got to trust you too. So the other thing I'm going to do is I don't want this to be quite so intensely purple. So I'm going to add just a tiny little touch of our little raw sienna here. And in a way, what we've done is we've added the three...
So that kind of mutes it down?
Yeah, we've kind of added this, and I'm going to add just a little bit of white too, just to bring it. It kind of gives us this kind of grayish lavender color. We don't need a lot of paint. We can always mix more as we go. I'm mixing enough for both Jenny and I. It's almost that color. You remember that color in the crayon box called Periwinkle?
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of the color we're going for. And basically what we're going to do to create our sky now, or our clouds, is I'm just going to take this color, and you can see I'm going a little lighter than your instructions.
So that we get that one, like the original.
Yeah. But if you like the way the instructions are, just don't add quite as much white. And I'm trying to keep my brush going. I try to think about the shape of clouds and the movement of them when I brush them in. So if I can add movement by being loose and kind of wispy with my brushwork.
You're going to have to mix more paint.
Yeah, that's right. We're always going to have to mix more paint. That's how I paint.
So clouds are usually, like in your situation with this beach painting, you have like the wall of clouds where it's real flat on the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Well, in like general, when you're looking out, when you look out across the horizon, especially at the beach, what you're seeing is you're seeing the bottom planes of the clouds anyway. You're not seeing a lot of billowing and scooping down too much. So a lot of times we have a tendency of thinking of what clouds look like when we look straight up at them instead of when we look across at them. So I'm just filling this whole area up above.
So we're painting clouds the way they look when you're in an airplane.
Right now we're just back painting, like underpainting.
I'm going to mix my own color because you're like mixing the smallest amounts.
Fine.
Actually, I think that's what you usually do when we paint. You make your own.
Yeah, we totally do.
So you just added a little pink in there. Was that accidental?
No, that's what we started with it.
On your painting.
Oh, because I'm not trying to mix every little batch exactly the same.
Okay.
And there's a reason why I don't stick to that too precisely. And the reason is it builds in a lot of natural variation like you would get in clouds without having to actually spend a bunch of time putting that variation in. Now, the room we're in right now is very warm.
Very.
And our paint is drying very fast.
So when I do clouds, a lot of times I'm doing sort of a scooping motion.
Yeah, right now we're just
doing that.
No.
Okay.
We're just filling in.
Okay.
Yeah. Because what we're doing is we're just laying down the foundation color for our clouds, and the other colors that you're seeing appear on mine is just because I'm not spending as much time mixing my palette color to be perfectly, thoroughly mixed.
Well, I'm not going to do that either.
Good. Nobody should.
I like the pink in there that you put.
You can add a little bit of phthalo blue into it too. Bahama blue if you want to as well.
That'll lighten it really fast though, so be careful if you do that.
Yeah.
It reacts a lot like white.
It really does act very much the way white does. So rather than really trying to create clouds at this time, we're just creating the middle tone shadows that the clouds will be. I know. This is not what we want. I mean, this is what we want to do, but this is, like, for a lot of us, this is not a comfortable part of a painting like this, because we want to paint a cloud shape and fill it in.
And they always look real blocked in at first.
Yep. And don't worry about this hard line right up here at the top. It's okay if it's there, because when we come back in with our lighter pinks and I even got a little bit darker, kind of more like the original in mine right now. But when we come in and start adding our highlights, that's when we get to bring all these tones down a bit. I am actually going to bring mine down a bit by just kind of brushing some Bahama into the whole thing real quick.
Yeah, the Bahama will work really good because it's going to lighten it, but not as stark as like white does. So I'm adding a lot of that to mine too.
Yeah.
So it's a softener. It works as a buffer, a little softener.
Well, the other thing is sometimes when you're looking into clouds, you do get little peekaboo glimpses of the sky. And this is kind of a little bit more of a comfortable sky color for a pastel-y kind of painting. There we go. Yeah, I'm good with that. And it's okay if it's streaky. It's okay if it's fairly solid. It really doesn't matter. We're all kind of gonna interpret this a little bit different. Jenny, you're putting a lot of texture into yours right now, whereas I'm just kind of going a little bit more of a block fill.
That's funny because that's very reverse of how we normally do it.
Yeah, but
you're normally the texture king.
Well, it depends on the part of the process. So that's
okay.
That's kind of where I'm at with that. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse my brush again. Because we're going to start working on our foundation for our water now. And I know I look at the instructions. We're going to go ahead and, mostly I wanted to rinse the brush just because it needed to be refreshed.
Let's talk real quick, a little quick fast note about the instructions. So the printed instructions are there if you're not doing the video tutorial and you want to do it on your own, or maybe you need to go back later and revisit something. And so when we're teaching live, I've run into this every time I teach. The steps when you're teaching live are a little different, maybe out of order a bit because of timing, and you don't have time to let's all just wait in silence for 5 minutes while the painting dries.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more jumping around than what is in your printed instructions. So we're not always going to follow those exact.
I think it's very much more like when we're teaching live in person, where we've learned over the 9 years we've been doing this how to bounce around the canvas. So things have a chance to dry and you can come back and do things. So anyway, okay, so what we are going to do next is we are going to go ahead and we're going to start laying down a foundation for our water, and we're going to use the same color that we used for our clouds in the sky. I'm going to use my brush to point. We're going to use the same basic mix of colors, and we're just going to kind of do the bottom inch or so. And even though we're going to be painting over most of that later with our foreground, I like to go ahead and paint it all the way down to the bottom of the canvas, and then we can pull that color up a little bit more. So I'm actually, as I do this, I'm going to add just a touch more raw sienna to it. So I want it to be a little bit more muted, almost even, the raw sienna will almost pull like a kind of a stormy sea color to it a little bit more. But go ahead, we're just going to start right at the bottom. Again, primarily the phthalo blue, a little bit of the phthalo red, little tiny bit of the raw sienna. Now what happens with the raw sienna is it can get in there and make it muddy really fast.
So just add a little at a time?
Yeah, just a little at a time. I mean, I kind of feel like that's always the case when you're, if you're new. You putting in rain already?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's right. Jenny actually publicly said she's going to go out of her way to stray from the path on this painting.
Like really stray. So I am going to follow what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I had posted on Facebook that I was going to add something different to it, like a tidal wave or the Loch Ness Monster or sharks, and I was open to suggestions. And our friend Dan suggested that I add the Death Star blowing up the lighthouse.
I mean, that could be fun. You know what? I think we've been talking about doing May the 4th be with you.
Yes, we're going to do that.
Class.
I want to do that. I thought about that again today. Someone suggested, we have this really fun, glam Chewbacca painting we did last year on May the 4th, and it was a sold-out class. It was so much fun. And someone asked if we would do that as a kit, and I'm absolutely going to do that. I'm going to put that out tomorrow, and
we'll do it.
We'll do it on May the 4th as a live lesson.
We can do an online registration for that.
Okay?
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
We'll figure it out. Anyway, okay, before we get too sidetracked on that, we do need to start pulling in, once you've kind of got 1.5 inches or so, maybe 2 inches of this color across the bottom, we're going to switch over now while it's still wet. I'm not going to rinse my brush yet, but I'm going to switch over to Bahama Blue. And right along this top edge. Now this is something I know people kind of struggle with, is when we bring a new color in, how do we keep it from just being a hard line right there? And the way I do it is I start with the color across just in a hard line, But then I take my brush and I let the brush kind of overlap half and half into each of the two colors at first. And I just start brushing back and forth. And you can kind of move down a little bit if you want to. You can move up a little bit.
Yeah, because that lower area is going to be covered by like a black rock face.
Yep. But I did want to pull a little bit of this color up.
This part right here is not important.
Right.
Meaning you guys don't need to stress about it.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush because, again, a lot of this when I'm rinsing my brushes, like for tonight, it has less to do with actually cleaning the pigment from the brush. It has much more to keeping the brush soft and pliable because it does
get overloaded with paint.
It gets overloaded and the brush starts to stick to the canvas. When it starts to stick to the canvas, really what's happening is that paint is drying on your bristles. So it is time to give it a quick little refresh. I'm coming up to within about an inch. If you got a little higher than that, like Jenny did, that's fine.
It's okay. No one can see me.
Nobody can see yours. And now I'm going to take a little bit of white. I'm going to brush some white in here. And the reason I'm brushing this white in is it helps kind of create a little buffer. I'm letting that brush into our Bahama Blue. I'm going to start using that, pulling that up to the point. I actually need a little bit more Bahama in here. So that starts to just layer into our sienna that we put in the water beforehand.
Hey, look, Brian's doing our class.
Sweet.
Hey, Brian.
What's up, Brian?
That's
our...
my brother-in-law, my sister's husband.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's why you're so distracted. You're texting with your sister the whole time.
Chatter. I'm right caught up right exactly where you were. And I even added rain. So,
I'll bake you a cookie when we get done. Anyway, I'm bringing this color all the way up. And I'm trying to be... If you get a little bit too crazy like I did, you can always bring a little bit more of the raw sienna in. I got too much there too. But all these colors kind of mix together. I like the way the sienna and the Bahama.
They make a really good color.
They make a great color for a stormy ski. Maybe Melissa's right. Maybe I am drunk.
Drunk on how hot it is in this room.
Drunk on drinking water and eating way too much pizza, I guess. All right, so those colors that we're using right now, they really work excellent together for creating a stormy.
So if you add
color,
the Bahama Blue, which is your light turquoise with that kind of butterscotch yellow, and then if you add a tiny bit of white to it, you get a true like seafoam green. Like my brother had a Fender Stratocaster in that color when I was growing up. It was called seafoam green. I will never forget that
it's
color.
a very traditional color, and I think that term actually comes from old Cadillacs. That Fender stole the color name. But you can see in this original that I did very early on, you're seeing little bits of this more stormy, seafoamy kind of turquoise. You know, it's kind of like a dusty turquoise color up in this background areas more than you see, you know, more of a rich blue.
My little yellow area got kind of muddy. So I'm going to fix that up.
Well, we can let that dry. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm actually going to use... I wish we didn't have this plastic tablecloth on here.
Do you need paper? There's a pad of paper right there, that gray paper.
No, it's because it's sitting on my leg and making it sweat like crazy. All right. I'm going to switch brushes real quick. You don't have to. But we just got these round brushes in that we haven't used a whole lot.
I really like them.
And I love them. So I'm going to switch to number 8. You can keep using the same brush you've been using if you like that. But that color mix you were just talking about, that seafoam green, we're going to go ahead and roll with that. I'm going to take a little bit of my Bahama.
It's an appropriate color name.
Let me steal the palette real quick. Take a little bit of this Bahama Blue, a little bit of our raw sienna, and a little bit of white if you want to. And basically what we're mixing up is we're mixing up the color let me slide this back down on here. For this back, like, I don't know, what we call that, a cape? Finger of land.
Yeah, it's like way in the distance, so there's maybe going to be some mist and fog in front of it. So well, and things
the further things go away from you, the more desaturated they become anyway. So I'm going to come across right at my horizon line, maybe about an inch past halfway. I'm going to take this color. I'm just going to brush it straight across.
And that's for your little finger of land.
Yep, that's where the land interacts with the ocean. And you really do want this to be fairly straight across when it's that far away. We're not going to see a lot of other contour and stuff like that with the ocean. We can build that in later if we want to, but it's not necessary. Then from this end, I'm just going to very loosely wiggle the brush along. Now, I like to do, I know a lot of times we instinctively want to just draw when we do something like this. And I think what happens is when we do that, we end up with these hard lines that seem very out of place. And so I like to kind of just take the brush and just wiggle it and move it to help create these shapes. And it's actually a good idea to kind of come back and kind of soften up that edge by kind of making it a little bit more like brushing it out, feathering it out. And just kind of fill this in.
I like to make the edges kind of more rough. You think about like there's trees and things, shrubs, and if you've ever tried to climb one of these when you're a kid, there's always some of that, like whatever that manzanita plant or something in the way.
Well, and it could be even, depending on which cape it is, it could be those big spruce trees like the octopus tree and stuff like that up higher.
That's a place that'd be really cool to go to right now with this good weather.
Good weather is ending this week.
Darn COVID-19.
So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to rinse it off and let it be just, I'm going to wipe my brush off, but I'm going to let it be just a little bit damp because I want to kind of obscure the bottom so it's not quite such a hard line. I just take the brush and just kind of pull it down.
So are you saying it becomes one with the water?
Yeah, and by pulling that color down into the water, it creates a little hint of a reflection, shadow, whatever you want to call it, but it also softens up that edge. All right. There we go. I'm kind of happy with that. It's the upper monitor, you can't even see it at all.
Actually, I think the upper monitor seems to be paused. Oh, no, I see it. You're right. Okay. Yeah, that's weird. Well, it appears on YouTube, it appears correctly, but that monitor up there is dying. So we can't reference that.
So get your friends to like and subscribe so we can get a better monitor so we can see what's going on. I ain't kidding. The bills don't pay themselves.
I just bought some canvases. They're mini canvases that have magnetic strip all around the back.
Tell us about it.
Maybe we'll go grab them in a minute, but I want to do that as a project. I put them on my fridge. I don't know if they're actually strong enough to hold anything other than like maybe the thinnest, smallest scrap of paper, but they look so cute on the fridge. I did Van Gogh paintings. I did Starry Night, and I did like one that's like his almond blossoms, but it was cherry blossoms.
Cool. All right, so we're gonna do one more little spigot of land, and this one I'm just gonna take again my Bahama Blue and raw sienna, and I want to add just the tiniest little touch of phthalo red to it. Let me pull this up here. Little tiny touch of phthalo red, and what it does is it actually just kind of creates a more of a taupey kind of color. You guys remember that word? Seems like taupe was a big color in like
the 90s.
Yeah, early 90s. I think. Yeah, just adds this.
Everybody wanted their living rooms taupe.
Yeah, it just adds makes it a little bit darker.
Our living room is taupe.
A little bit of a more muted.
Which is your color you mean?
This one.
Oh, okay.
Tone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come from this point. I'm not going to touch my brush to the canvas, but I'm going to use this point as a reference. I'm going to come back about maybe 1.5 inches and down about 1/2 inch or so. The main thing that we're looking for with this color is that it's just a little darker than what we already put on.
And what did you add to it to darken it?
Just the tiniest little bit of
Phthalo
red.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same color with just
that's what I have here, so let's add to that. Because you make like the amount for a microscopic painting.
Yeah, I don't remember where it said, watch our YouTube video where Jenny ridicules Paul the whole time.
That's my job.
It's not. People don't want to watch that. It's like they're watching Married with Children.
Perfect. Okay, so if your hill is still wet.
I'm going to start calling you Peg.
I love it. I'm going to do my hair really big like that.
I'm going to sit back with my hand in my pants.
Please don't.
I won't. You wouldn't know if I did anyway.
So my back hill is still a little wet, which a lot of people might have, and it's kind of pushing the paint away.
Okay.
So that might be something you address.
Well, I think you just did.
Okay. Let it dry, or grab a hair dryer.
If you are having that problem, there's two things you can do. You can let it dry. You can pause it and come back, or you can just put a little bit more paint on your brush and really think of just setting the paint on top of the existing paint. So don't push down very hard. Just kind of let the brush, let the paint just kind of come off the brush and sit there. All right. Again, it's just a little bit darker. It's really not that vital that it be that much.
It's almost just like grayer.
Yeah, just a little grayer. It is a little darker though, if you squint at it. It's so not important to the. I mean, you could leave it off completely if you wanted to. It wouldn't hurt this painting in any way, shape, or form.
So on the original, which part of this?
One right here.
Oh, so it's a very we only see a peekaboo view of it.
Yep.
Like literally the tiniest little peekaboo.
Yep. As we keep adding more and more to this stuff, is that funny?
Yes. I was like, what is he adding right now? Because I couldn't see it on the original at all.
Maybe you need to pay attention.
Well, I also got this like massive LED light in my face.
It's not that big. But thanks for thinking so. All right,
continue on.
All right, so the next one we're going to do is we are going to do this process one more time. And I wasn't too concerned about where this one terminated up in here, because this next one we're going to do, which is really the one that we really see, this is something that I like to call like echo shapes. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, well, we create one shape in the foreground, and then we do echoes of it in lighter tones. And then because we get the one that's in the foreground that's more detailed, our eye automatically picks up and recognizes that, oh, these other two must be the same thing. So it's just something, so it's so easy to add without having to like really go through and detail a bunch of stuff, because we let the detail in the foreground really kind of resolve in our minds what's going on in the background. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to take that same color that we've got where we've been mixing. I'm going to take just the tiniest little bit of black and add that to it. Let me bring this over. I know one of these days what we need to think about setting up that extra camera for just the palette.
Yep.
So I'm doing black and raw sienna. I'm going to add a little tiny bit of my Bahama blue, a little bit more black. And really what we end up with is kind of a really warm gray. Kind of a brownish gray.
What did you mix? I missed that part.
It's a little bit of black.
Oh, right. Okay. With the color you were just using.
Yep. And this is really a great time where when you mix it on your palette, mix little batches. You don't need to mix very much. And I try not to over mix so it becomes just one solid color. I like it to have some texture to it.
Our palette's looking pretty epic.
Yeah, it's getting there. So I'm going to start again from this point that we just painted. I'm going to move back maybe only about a ½ inch this time, and just a little bit, not quite as far down. So maybe about 3/8 of an inch or so. And I'm just going to kind of go straight across again. Now this will eventually, we're going to tie a beach into this corner here. But for right now, we're just using this color. This is creating our bigger area. So I am going to kind of come up a little bit, and I'm going to create a little flat spot right about here for our lighthouse to be on. I don't know if you remember, but when I painted this originally, I didn't put the lighthouse on, and I went back after. It was only like 20 minutes later.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I painted it at the studio when you were teaching a class, and
oh yeah.
yeah, I painted it, and I just kind of I went back like 20 minutes after I had finished it, and went, I'm gonna put a lighthouse on. Yeah, so just kind of creating, and if it's mixing with your paint behind, that's totally fine. Totally fine.
That's in fact sometimes welcome.
Yeah, I really like it when that happens.
But you do want a flattish spot where the lighthouse would have been built.
Yep, you want to leave yourself a little bit of room. Maybe it doesn't have to be much. Maybe half
We've been
inch.
kind of into lighthouses lately because the watercolor I did that's coming up in the kit has a lighthouse on it.
Don't know what to tell you.
It's because it's longing to go to the beach.
Yeah, something like
we
that.
love. I don't know if any of you guys have, if you're Oregonians, if you've ever been to, or Californians, whatever. If you've ever been to Yachats in Oregon, it's Central Oregon coast.
Yeah.
We discovered it because we got booked for a paint party there, and it's like our favorite coast to go visit because it's not super touristy. It kind of has a feel like the little restaurants and stuff are very much like what you would think you would find in Portland.
Yeah, the coffee shop has a whole CBD menu of coffee drinks.
But our favorite restaurant is called the Lunacy, and it's spelled, it's two words, Luna space SEA, which we thought was so funny. But man, they have the best fish and chips, and we've always thought so.
Chowder.
And then we saw it was rated as best fish and chips in the West Coast, or I don't remember.
On the Oregon coast by Willamette Week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can also, while you're painting this in, I like to kind of sometimes bring in a little extra black. And I am really using, now we are using more little choppy brush strokes like we might expect from Van Gogh or Monet or somebody like that. And the reason we're doing that is it creates texture, it creates interest. We don't know what that might be, but there's something going on there. And that's usually when we're painting a landscape, that's going to be a whole lot more interesting than just a flat color.
Yeah, so occasionally like scrub a little black in there like you did. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. You can even take, some Bahama blue.
Oh yeah, I like that as a highlight color.
Or even some raw sienna. You can kind of do all that. That was kind of very much something Monet would do. With splash little bits of, there's a term for it. You remember what it is? Where you add just a bright splash of blue or pink where you don't necessarily expect it. But
it's expressionism?
Yeah, I think there's a term for it. We'll look it up. And I don't know. If anybody knows what it is, let us know. All right, so I do, again, it's just little bits of black. Now the other thing that we do with this is when we're working on this.
Oh, you added raw sienna in there.
Just for an example.
I like that.
Just a little example.
I'm going to do that.
I do what I want.
I'm going to do it.
All right. So the other thing I like to do is with this brush, you can use a smaller brush, but I like to kind of come through and just kind of pull up some little tufts, some little peaks. And this is just some trees. You can really just kind of take your brush and scribble along this hillside.
So you're doing that kind of sound wavy thing
Kinda,
that you do,
yeah.
A lot of times where you're like painting.
It's really, it's like Jenny said, it's kind of like a sound wave, but really
or
it's
a
just
heart rate monitor. Sometimes we'll say that. It's just the indication or suggestion of trees when you're not without painting trees.
Yeah, you don't need to paint trees.
Almost like grass stalks.
Yeah, if you try to get too much detail, what it does is it pulls it too close to us, and then all of a sudden our lighthouse looks like it's a miniature sitting out there.
Sometimes adding a drop of water to your paint before you do this is really helpful, I found.
Yeah. It's really just making it jagged.
We're going to make it jagged.
A little jagged.
I want to see where you added Bahama blue. There's a weird glare in that light. Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And you could add any of these colors. Anything that's up in the sky, you can put in down here. I mean, you can I mean, you could take a little bit of pink if you wanted to, and
it's expressionism, so whatever your heart wants to express.
I mean, I just did more than I wanted to, but it's easy.
Some people might be solid black.
Yeah, I mean, you know what you can do is if you did get too dark, like I know that happens, black is a wonderful color to paint over. So you can.
Did you just add pink to it?
Oh yeah, I just was being expressionistic and being like, you can add whatever color you want.
I think mine is too wet. I need to wait for it to dry a few.
Oops, did I just bump the camera out? I did.
You need me to adjust it?
No, I got it.
Okay.
I built this new camera rig and I forgot that the leg was right there. Anyway, so I was just saying you can throw any of these colors that are present up above. In there. Now I've got mine's a little bit more of a mound.
Mine too.
But that's okay. I mean,
you know what it looks like? It looks like that one hill we always see outside of Skamania Lodge as we're looking. As we're looking east down the gorge.
It could be because I've looked at that a million
Exactly.
times.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
I don't know how many times I've gotten up in the morning when we're up at Skamania or gotten done teaching a class and been like, ooh, I'm going to take a picture of that hill. And I've got probably like 400 pictures of it now. Probably not that many, but probably a lot. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to let all this bottom part dry. And we're going to start now working on getting our fun lavender pink stuff going on in our sky. Right now, this painting, it's if I were to hold them right next to each other, oops, I'll do, here's one, here's the other. It's really hard to see how they become the same thing at this point.
Yeah, your sky is really dark in the first one. I mean, the one you're working on tonight.
Yeah, but if you actually look at this, underneath there, it's just as dark. So, what going to do now is I'm going to keep using the same brush for this to start with. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix together some, let's just start with the phthalo red straight up.
Okay.
So I'm going to take my medium-sized brush. You can use your biggest brush if you want, if you feel comfortable with it. I know I used the biggest brush when I painted it originally, but I'm loving this round brush. I don't know who talked us out of. I know who talked us out of using round brushes on medium-sized brushes before, but I'm not going to say any names.
I don't remember.
Oh, selective memory. I'm just going to take a little bit of this pure phthalo red, and I'm going to just scrape it through just a little tiny bit right on top.
So it's almost like you're outlining part of the cloud.
Don't use the word outline.
Outline, outline, outline.
Yeah, please. Because you can let this come down into your sky a little bit further.
How about this? You're starting to outline and then you spread it out.
You are just obsessed with using the word outline. We are not outlining. We are laying paint on top of the edge.
Outlining, no.
Wow.
I do like this brush.
You guys see what I have to deal with? Alright. So I'm just using a little bit of paint. I don't want to... You can add more if you want to. You can get pretty heavy with this in a hurry. But what I want to do before we get going too far is while this is still kind of wet, I'm going to take a little tiny bit of white now and smudge it in to our pink.
So we're mixing on the canvas.
Yep. And the reason I like to do that is it gets more unevenness. And if you get too white, you know what? Big deal. Wait for it to dry a little bit. We're going to come back with the phthalo red and you can plop it on top of the white area that you put in, and it just actually becomes that much more vibrant because painted over the white is going to be really intensely bright versus painted over this kind of...
Well, I think having some bright spots in here is not a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm even letting some of this kind of go down into my sky.
Rebellious.
I know, I'm being a rebel. What am I talking about? I'm being a rebel. It's my painting.
That's the thing is funny is like you can change things a lot of people get afraid too because oh no, it's not like what's in the printout or like when they come into class a lot. No, it's not exactly what the teacher's doing, but sometimes you guys will do so much better. Like come up with something, and maybe sometimes it's an accident. You come up with something completely different from the instructor, and we're like, dang, can I get a picture of you with your painting? And secretly we're like stealing the idea.
Now it's not a secret anymore. Thanks, Jenny. You're revealing industry secrets to people. Alright, so I do like to use the smaller brush down in this lower part because I do want this to be a little bit more controlled. And so let me just kind of go across here. I want to make sure I've kind of got a little bit of this fresh paint along the top side of where I've put this color in, because then what we're going to do, Jenny, you going to pay attention? Mm-hmm. Just checking. I'm going to wipe my brush off. And I'm going to take my dry brush and just kind of scribble back and forth across this top edge. This might work better with a bigger brush. But really what I want to do is I'm trying to fade this top edge out a bit.
You would use a bigger brush too, yeah? Is that what you just said?
Yep. Like I said, pay attention.
I am paying attention to my painting.
Right now we have an almost 14-year-old daughter sitting in the other room probably rolling her eyes.
She's probably making TikToks about us.
I'm like, oh, my parents, they're like arguing.
She is not like that. No,
she isn't. But I like, that's how all 14-year-old girls talk when I'm speaking for them. Like, can you believe it? All right. So I'm going to switch now to our bigger brush because as we work our way up, I want to be a little bit bolder with this brush work. And I'm going to start a little bit of my phthalo red. And I'm leaving a little gap.
All right, now it looks like you're using the skinny edge of the brush
some. I encourage you to try to use like all sides of the brush. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and...
Let's see that original again. Let me pull that in front of the screen so we can get a good look at the sky.
Yeah. So this has got some lighter tones to it still, which we'll get there. But right now it's again...
Mm-hmm.
We started
building on it.
We started with our base tone. This is our warmer highlights, and then we'll add some brighter highlights as we get going. And you might find that as I'm bumping the camera with my arm, I am a broad person, and just everything gets bumped. But you might love the way this vibrant phthalo red just sits on top of this kind of darker periwinkle kind of color that we made. And you might say, wow, I just really love that intensity. And you can just be like, I'm not going to do anything else with that.
Yeah, sometimes the sky looks like that.
And when I get up a little higher, I'm going to use a little bit more of this color. But one of the things I'm doing with this as I do it is I am kind of starting with a pretty good chunky amount. And then I'll wipe my brush off and just kind of streak it through. My paintbrush is like, hey, we're going streaking. That was my old school reference.
It's been a long time since I saw that movie.
So I'm really letting it be nice and streaky. Now, I can take a little bit of white now on the tip of the brush, and you can kind of trying to figure
lighten it up a bit.
Yeah, you can lighten it up a bit.
If you want.
If you want to. Or the other thing, which I actually think maybe works a little bit better when we're kind of getting up in here, is to actually wait for this to dry, mix some of the phthalo red and white together, and then apply it. Then you can take a little bit of
Bahama. Did you just put Bahama?
I did. Why not?
Like that. Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Let's do that.
Let me copy you.
Anything you can do, I could do. That's
That's our theme song. That actually lightens it up a lot. If you guys need that.
Yeah, I think it's actually
Bahama blue streaked in there and kind of work it outward from.
It feels like maybe you're getting a little peek of the sky showing up there
Yeah, you
too.
can even put some stars up there.
Oh, there we go. You know, it's as predictable as the sun coming up in the morning.
Jenny painting
Jenny
stars.
adding stars to the sky. That and fireflies.
Me and Van Gogh, man, we just had a thing for stars.
And any of this, I mean, you can experiment around because these colors that we're using up in here, they all work together. So if you feel like, wow, I put too much of that blue, I don't like that anymore. Well, it's all right. You can come back.
Layer, build, layer, paint over.
Yeah, sometimes the more you do, especially when you're talking about clouds.
Yeah.
Sometimes the more you do,
You can get a little overworked.
well, but sometimes it looks better too.
Yeah. I have a tendency to overwork them.
Clouds are probably the most intricate thing there is to paint in landscaping, or in landscape painting, I think.
The easiest way are to do those wispy clouds where you're just using white on your brush back and forth, and they're like, oh, there are those clouds that you see through, and you can see the blue sky through.
Yep, exactly. So I actually kind of like how that looks. All right. We is getting there. I'm going to take a cheat real quick and see what the instructions say next. Just want to make sure I'm not getting too far away. Well, we skipped a step. That's all right. Well, like I said, if you're following the video, you probably don't need the instructions much.
They're nice to have the photo reference, but yeah, for the most part, they are intended to be for people who don't follow the videos.
Yep, exactly. All right, so what we want to do next, Jenny, is we are going to put our little beach in. It goes along here. It's just going to be a nice little curve. And the color for this, are you ready?
Ready.
I'm going to wait. We got any comments coming in? Anything we need to be aware of?
Nope.
We missing anything? But I'm going to let people catch up just a little bit before we move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even though this is live, and I've said it every video, you can pause it. Something we figured out after teaching a few videos. We can totally be put on pause if you need to catch up. Or go back and fix something. Keep a hairdryer handy because that will speed up the fixing process. Because sometimes you have to wait for things to dry, and it's annoying to have to do that. So the hairdryer will dry it within like 30 seconds.
True. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create, let me bring this back into play here. I'm still a little darker than the original, but I'm not as dark as the other one. I'm kind of in between, which is okay. I'm going to take this bit of land here and I'm going to extend it so it becomes our little sandy beach. And I kind of made it, let the sand kind of ride up this bit of land a little bit, so it kind of feels like a little bit like Cape Kiwanda, where the dune goes up the side.
You did a really weird color mix for that.
Yeah,
color.
so that's an interesting color. It's like zombie flesh gray.
Pull your palette over and show them.
Yeah. So the color we use for that is we're going to start with our raw sienna. We're going to add a little bit of our phthalo red. About 50-50.
That makes a pretty color.
And we're going to add a little bit of Bahama blue.
That makes a not so pretty color.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the raw sienna. There we go. It makes a not so pretty color.
Zombie flesh.
It's kind of,
it's almost sand colored.
It's amazing. It's actually sand colored. So the color, I'm just going to kind of start right along this edge. You can actually even use a little bit more Bahama. Or even a little bit of white if you feel like it's getting... Like the white... What white and Bahama both do is they add some opacity to this so that it can actually show up. I actually think it needs a little bit more white. But I'm basically... What I like to do is when I'm painting a shoreline... A lot of times people, again, they want to draw this curve, and I don't really like to draw a curve. I like to kind of take my brush.
You wiggle a curve.
And wiggle in a curve, exactly.
You know, like a gray sand would work here too, because in Oregon, we have
Oregon
a lot of
coast,
gray
yeah.
sand. Gray, make a gray and then mix some of the raw sienna with it. That's a good color. I was just thinking for mine because I wanted something cooler.
Yeah, mine's a little warmer than I wanted, but I'm gonna live with it. Now the other thing I did say I want to kind of lift this color up into.
So you're just kind of making it dissipate, sort of.
Yep.
Till your brush runs out of paint.
Yep.
Oh, you brought that curve way down here.
Yeah, I just decided I'm going to bring it down further than I think I need to, just in case I end up not making my foreground as big as I thought I was going to.
Oh.
It's always kind of a safe thing to do.
Playing it safe, huh?
Playing it safe.
Alright. I can play it safe.
Yeah, never hurts.
My little sandbar can come out here.
Watch out for the sneaker waves when you're painting this. Don't get down too close.
Yeah, those are scary. Some of the videos I've seen, good lord. Actually, that one part in Yachats is really scary when you go down next to it. It's not Thor's Well, which is scary enough, but it's that other place before Thor's Well. What's it called? I can't remember.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
We did a hike down there and then it went up to the lighthouse, but it's like this channel.
Oh, Hasida? Is Hasida Head?
Hasida Head, but that actual little channel has a name.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about. Devil's Churn?
Yeah, that's it. Something like that.
Yeah. Like, I feel like
scary.
my paint...
You realize how much power...
That paint I put on there went on really thin. So I'm going to...
You can see the water through it.
Yeah, and that's actually okay.
Is it?
To some extent.
What are you adding to it now?
I'm just adding a little bit of whites for some opacity. And that's actually just lifting the paint, so...
Tricky.
There we go. I'm content with that.
Oh, good. I'm looking at the YouTube video. Looks good.
Yeah. Alright. So, let me look at... You know, it's probably not a good thing for me to clap.
Not with the microphone right there.
It's like, clap, clang, ping!
Better than yodeling.
Well, that's true. That's true. So what we're going to start doing... Now, Jenny, I don't think you have painted waves with me in a long time.
No, you've talked me through it.
Yeah.
You said paint a teardrop shape.
No, that's not what I mean.
Oh, I haven't done these kind of... No, yeah. I haven't done this kind of wave.
So, we're going to... Let me stomp my foot.
I was thinking more of the wave that it's curling over.
Oh,
You taught me how to paint those recently.
I've kind of developed some new ways of painting waves.
Oh, do tell.
And if you've taken them in the studio... I've been teaching it this way for a while, but it's not normally on a side, like a wave where we're looking up the length of it. What I like to make you think about is when we're painting waves here, they're like shelves. They're stacks. So if I take my hands, and it's like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
As they come in, they're rolling on top of each other.
And if you can see on my hand, there's a shadow and highlights and things like that. Especially
and a tattoo.
And tattoo. That's my wedding ring, by the way.
Your wedding tree.
My wedding tree. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that idea of a shelf. And the way we create the idea of a shelf is by lightening it up.
Do it.
And so right now, this is like mine right through here is a little too light. It's a little bit too much white going on. There would not be this much light in the water. That's where I brushed in the white earlier.
Okay.
That was more to keep those two colors from mixing into too much of a stormy color yet. But I'm going to fix that now, because as we start building this area where the waves are coming in, we're not only going to be building highlights, we're going to be building shadows. So we're going to start off with, I'm going to use my medium-sized brush. And this is going to be a time that I'm going to probably move a little bit on the slower side, just to make sure that I'm trying to see how long we've been going.
Where's the timestamp? Let's see. There's no timestamp on this.
Okay. I think there is on the
Hey,
lower.
we're all in quarantine. We got time.
Yeah, we got plenty of time. Anyway, I'm going to take my time on this because this is one of those things that I think is a little bit, I don't want to get too involved in calling it complicated because I don't want it to freak people out. But it is something that you're going to need to
stop drinking for a minute.
Yeah. It's actually a really easy process but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, did I hear that right? What?
Oh, great. It's one of those.
No. Why don't you plant doubt in people? That light is flickering.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let me see if I can adjust it.
Yeah, it's like it's going to give me a seizure.
You don't want that.
No.
Okay, go ahead and instruct.
All right. So what we're going to do is one of the things I've noticed is when we do waves that are coming across, just change the color of it. And that
I'm working on it.
There, that's better. Okay. A lot of times when we paint a wave that's curving with a shoreline, people have a tendency of either curving way too much or just kind of coming straight down.
Yeah, and the one you did last for the photos, if you notice, it's more straight down. That's why I was saying I like the curve of the old original one better. Yeah,
exactly. So what she's talking about is this comes really straight down. Now, I actually added another little finger of land in here on the new one. It has 3 fingers of land in both the original and the new one, but I put the lighthouse on the middle one. I don't know what I was doing. Taking too many pictures, distracted. But this curve on this one is far more appealing. And
more
it's
natural.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's coming back. This one kind of feels like it's starting to come back. This one kind of feels like it's coming back and just kind of ending somewhere down below the shoreline here, or the cliff side. So I like that better. Let me shuffle these around.
Oh, oops. I was painting a little patch of dark blue sky for my Death Star I'll be adding later.
Okay, so what we're going to start off with is, let's do this in this. It's going to be several steps.
Okay,
but they're easy steps. They're kind of just doing the same thing over again.
Just teach us.
I'm going to start with Bahama Blue. I'm going to start just off the point of this right here, maybe right at the point. And I'm going to curve this in and down. And you're going to want to kind of move fairly fast when you do this. Now, once I've got this on here, I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to take it and pull the paint, leaving the hard edge on the right hand side, but pulling the paint away from that edge.
Is this because of the theory that the water would be like paler where the thinner moving areas are? Or?
No, this is creating the top shelf, which is going to be lighter.
Okay.
I'm actually going to bring more paint in. I really want to pull this. You really want to pull this across a good...
And we're pretty much going strictly horizontal here?
Yeah. You really want to pull this color across a good several inches. So it's okay to go ahead and add more color.
Mine looks like that one scene in X-Men where Phoenix is under the water. You know what scene I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. It does kind of. Now this is just a foundation. You could even add a little tiny bit of raw sienna to that if you wanted to give it a little bit of that sea foamy kind of color. So actually it's interesting because if you take that raw sienna and Bahama and mix it together and then paint it on top, that's what I'm doing right now, is just a little bit. It actually looks like a highlight.
I like those two colors together.
Yeah. And when we get up in this area, you know, we don't really need to have waves that far off. You know, it's really just kind of smudging some of the color in. This is a good opportunity to kind of soften all this up back here if it feels too intense. So it's kind of interesting though, because we have to be careful, because if we got waves coming this way, so it's leaving this shape here, we're going to see some horizontal planes, but we don't want to have it feel like it's like a big hard horizontal plane.
And then keep in mind that part of this is going to be covered up.
Yeah.
So don't work too intently on that area.
Right. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, we kind of got, Jenny, I feel like you need to pull that further to the left. Just a little bit. Because what happens if you don't pull it too far, I'll show you on this one. If you look at this one, notice I didn't pull the color very far across, so it looks like the
goes
wave
up to a point.
It looks like the wave goes up into a point.
It looks like the glacier on Mount Hood.
Yeah. But instead of looking like two layers like this, it looks like a point. So you want to pull that color across a bit. And all of this will resolve. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, this feels like a lot of little things going on. And it is, but if you take each one little individual thing and don't get too focused in on the whole, you just think of the sum of the parts and it gets easier. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the shadow that goes from this leading edge to the right.
Okay.
Now, I want this to actually go fairly far to the right, not really harsh yet, because we can come back and do a harsher shadow. But what we're going to do for this is I'm going to mix up that seafoam color, raw sienna, Bahama blue, and I'm going to add just a tiny dot of phthalo blue to it.
So seafoam with a tiny dot of phthalo.
Yep. I'll mix a little extra so you've got enough to.
Thanks.
Seafoam with a little dot of phthalo. It's kind of I like it. It's kind of like a stormy sea kind of color. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take this color and bring it right along this front edge.
So you're outlining?
This time I am. But just like we just did, I'm going to take this color.
This is an interesting way of doing waves, that you've said you had a new style of doing them. So this is it, right?
Yeah. So take this color. And what you really want to do is you want to pull this color across to the right until it fades out.
What made you decide to do them this way? Just curious. Did you watch a show or?
No.
This is the Paul method?
This is the Paul method. No, this is just kind of really looking at what waves look like. I feel like actually I got that a little bit too much sea foamy.
Needs to be a little darker.
No, a little bluer. So I'm just going to add a little bit more phthalo to that, phthalo blue to that color, and just kind of, we can always adjust later. No, it's just, me trying to figure out, how do we get this layered look? And then sitting down with paint and trying different things. Now this particular painting, we kept it easy and just left one wave.
Really? There's just one wave? Oh yeah, I guess there is just one wave and then the
foam
breaker.
And stuff like that. While you've got that color that we just used mixed up, you can take little bits of it and just kind of, actually what works really good is to add a little touch of water to it so it's thick, like thick heavy cream. And you can kind of take this color and just kind of...
Or we just randomly... Like these are maybe deeper spots in the ocean?
Yeah,
That's what you're
there's
thinking?
a kelp bed there or something that's creating...
I'm going to make more paint.
Go for it. You accuse me of using a lot of paint.
You're not using enough tonight. Is this the right color? Yeah, it's about right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everybody's is going to be a little different. So now the other thing I want to do is this area that's in through here. There is actually kind of a second wave, but it's really right up on the shore.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my Bahama. If you really like that seafoam color, you can do it a little bit on the seafoam side. I think that looks nice. So I'm just going to take this kind of Bahama A color or seafoamy color and just really kind of bring it right up along onto the edge of the shore here. And you might even go all the way to the edge. But just like I did before, just kind of smudge it to the left. Now normally when we do these in the studio, most of the time when we've done seascapes, and I'm just kind of getting rid of this extra light color that I was not a fan of. Usually when we do this in the studio, it's really just the leading wave, and then from there a shadow. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's the foam and
Yeah.
a shadow.
That's how you've been doing it for years.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I'm just gonna take a little bit more of this
Are you
color.
saying you reinvented the wheel?
You know what? We always need to be. You know, that's how we grow as artists. I'm actually taking more of this color and really bringing it in here.
That's the seafoam?
Yeah, just a little bit. That's how we grow as artists. You know, we should never, ever, ever, ever stop learning. I think that's something I see with a lot of people is they get to be pretty good and then they stop.
It's okay, I know it all now.
I know what I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. And I don't, you know, okay, fine. If that's what makes you happy, that's fine. But I think then, you know, there's so much more.
I learned way more just from teaching people. Like I thought, I have a really good knowledge of art. And then when I taught people, I don't know, I just got better and better.
So the other thing I'm going to do is while we're playing around down in this area, I'm using the big brush now, biggest brush. I am going to mix up a little bit of kind of the lavenderish pink. And I'm just going to take a little bit of our phthalo red and Bahama.
You might put that.
Yeah, and it's just about equal parts.
Look at our palette.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is what happens when two people paint on the same palette together.
Date night.
Yeah. Oops, I'm keep bumping the camera. Might have to figure out a different place to put that.
When you're
one
there.
leg. All right. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this pink color, kind of lavender, and just kind of streak it into the water, because that's where we'd see some highlights. You can do a little bit down in here too.
A little reflection of the sky.
Yeah. But it's very, very small amount of paint on the brush. It's almost just a skim that we're putting in here. Don't want to go too far up.
Oops.
This is where we're getting our lavender for the coast.
Lavender Coast.
I wish I had like one more full glass of water.
Is that your way of saying you would like me to go get you one? I can.
It's my way of saying either I can do it
No,
and you can talk.
No, you paint. I'm caught up, so.
I spent all day working in the yard today, so I'm rehydrating, even though I stayed hydrated throughout the day. No, Melissa, I'm not drunk.
Now she's going to make another comment.
Great. It's bad enough when there's one of them. Add a second one to the mix. Me Vatser. Okay. So you can kind of play around with these colors, and I think the beauty of this particular painting and the palette of colors that we're using is they really all work together and interact well together. Sometimes you get colors that don't play so well. You know, they have a tendency of dominating the other colors in a way that if you get it going too much, doesn't work too well. In this case, the only color in our palette that's really that characteristic is black, and black is always going to be that way. It's you add it in there, it does not play nice. It just wants to take over and be like, hey, I'm the king of the playground. So anyway, the next thing we're going to start working on is we're going to start adding our foam to the wave here. And what we're going to do with that, well, we're actually going to start adding a lot of the water in the foreground. And we should be good. Trying to see what time it is. 9:02. So we're doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Is it really 9:02? Wow. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my medium-sized brush. You can use your smallest brush if you want. But we're going to do the same technique that we just did. Just not quite as exaggerated. But we're going to use white. So I'm just going to get a little bit of white. And you maybe only want to do a little bit at a time. Jenny, we're doing the same thing that we did with our Bahama blue, but we're doing it with white.
Oops, now I bumped the camera. Here you go.
This looks like so many colors going on.
You know, it really looks colorful up there on that monitor.
Yeah, that
not so much here, like look on the.
Yeah, it looks like neon.
You're bringing back the 80s.
It totally looks like a hypercolor shirt on our monitor. Anyway, so I'm taking this little bit of white and smudging it out to the left. Now this I don't need to smudge out quite as far across. You can they do kind of, scoop up a bit. It's not like it's a big shelf. It is a little bit of a scoop, but I've got something dried on my canvas right there. I don't know what it is.
It's a paint booger.
It's something. Something to that effect. So that one's done, pretty much. You don't need to do more. I mean, if you wanted to, add a little cresting kind of look, you can. But I don't think it's necessary. It just gets too complicated. Again, this is a long ways away. We don't want to see too much of our detail. Now the other thing we want to do is while we're working on this, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing on our wave that's right up on our shore. Now this one I'm really going to move the brush side to side. And what I mean is instead of drawing a line like we did on the other one, I'm letting the brush wiggle through because it's kind of lapping up onto the shore and you can create some new textures. Again, you can kind of pull that to the side a little bit. Now, obviously, we're going to have some interaction with our water and our shoreline here as well. So I'm going to take my brush with a little bit of white. You can use your smaller brush for this. You can use your smallest brush if you like. I tend to prefer using a bigger brush as much as I can. I think it adds to the organic element of the brush interacting with the canvas. But that's totally up to you. I'm going to start kind of scribbling in along this shoreline. You can create an extra little rock by just letting a little bit of this foam kind of trickle up in there. You can take some little wiggles of this white. And they really are just wiggles. Through here, this is kind of where our shallows are.
In the shallows.
Tell me something, girl. Coming soon. Painter-Roki. But I noticed that when I've looked at some paintings, or not paintings, but photographs in general, when you start seeing these flats in really close to the shore, there's a lot of foam, and it's not a lot of ocean color, it's a lot of foam color.
Kind of like weird yellowish sometimes.
It's the
and have you ever noticed if it dries on your legs, it's so itchy?
You know what? It's protein.
Seaweed protein?
Yeah. Just like sea life. And you can take, now, we've kind of done a little bit of this in here. You can do the same thing. Just streaking some white in out in here too. This painting is turning out so much more colorful than even the original, but not as dark as the second one. If you want it to feel like the sun is right up in here somewhere, which we don't really see the sun, but maybe the sun is up there and it's shining some light through. You know, you can take some white.
Oh, I like that.
Again, I'm letting it be pretty bold, but I'm not putting the paint on super thick, and I'm being really choppy. I don't know why we would see sun up there on the Oregon coast, but
because in the painting world, we can create our own world.
Yeah,
we want sun. You know what? I'm creating this. This
Yeah.
water's gonna be 85 degrees.
Yeah. We're
creating it.
You know, I never said it. I said it's Lavender Coast. I never said where.
Exactly.
I mean, it could be Hawaii.
Or Bali. We'll just
Yeah, it could be anywhere.
paint all these little huts out on the water.
Absolutely. So I'm also going to take a little bit of this white, and I'm just going to give it some interaction in between our little bits of land, just to kind of...
But not a ton, because it would be... You'd see some of the foam, but you just see the lightness. You wouldn't see
you don't want to put too much detail in out there.
So blurry brush. We want blur brush here.
Blur. Blur. So that's pretty much this evolution of painting waves. Who knows? It'll change in 6 months or a year. Who knows?
Painter's ADD.
Painters search for... What? What are you laughing about?
You're trying to fill in a word there, and I'm trying to figure out what one. Painters search for...
Perfection.
I see. You're making your wave a little more curvy.
I felt like that was a little flat.
You were inspired by someone.
What are you talking about? And I'm the one getting accused of being drunk. All right.
No, actually, I'm drinking water too, because it is really hot in this room. I noticed this especially when I stepped out to get you some more water.
I would say it's probably pretty close to 80 degrees in this room, which feels hot right now.
It's our water temperature.
All right, yeah. It's our water temperature in Hawaii. All right, so let's build our lighthouse real quick.
Okie dokie.
So to build the White House...
The White House.
The White House. Did I say... I did say the White House. We're going to start off with... I'm going to make some dark gray, just using black and Bahama blue. If you are out of Bahama blue and want to use white, that works too. And I'm basically just going to create... I like this... You know, my original, it gets almost up to the sky, but then my back hill is a little bit higher, so I'm not going to go quite that high. Maybe an inch tall, maybe an inch and a half. It's got a little taper to it. Now the other thing it's got is it's really crooked. Let's straighten that up just a little bit. That's a little too crooked. There we go. Maybe, there we go. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is they usually have a little house that's attached to them. So I'm just going to kind of pull off a little house right here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you ever caretake a lighthouse?
Sure.
Do you think that'd be kind of neat?
Well, kind
I
of.
always thought so.
The only problem is we're in the wrong decade. They're all self-operating now.
Yeah.
So the other thing is I want to move up just a little bit above it, maybe about 1/4 of an inch, and put on a little roof structure. And I'm going to put on a little line that kind of goes across the top there. I don't know if you can see that.
Your pepper mill. I remember in the
Yeah, it
instructions.
does look like a pepper mill, doesn't it?
That's what you had said in the instructions.
Actually, I think Eric must have said that.
No, you told me. I dictated
okay.
it. I sat there at the computer and typed, and you dictated it, and I typed it.
All right,
and I remember when you said that, I thought, that's really funny. Actually, it's smart. That's what it is. It's a pepper mill.
Oh, yeah, I remember saying that now that you say it was smart.
Of course, you remember that.
All right. So that's just our shape. We're going to let that dry. We're going to come back and really just add a highlight on one side, add a little bit of light, a little bit of color to the roof of it. Not going to work, and then we're going to put a little shadow down into the onto the land that it's sitting on. But let's get closer to wrapping this thing up, because I feel like, well, with the technical difficulties, we lost about a half hour.
Let's see. I think we started around 7:50. It's 9:14.
Yeah, so we're doing all right.
We just don't want to go too long.
Yeah, no. But the nice thing is if we do, and people are like, I'm going to go to bed,
come back tomorrow.
You can come back and finish it tomorrow. Although I'm not sure YouTube loves 4-hour live streams.
Probably not. So let's get going.
Yeah. We're not going to go 4 hours. No. What I want to do next is, before I get involved in introducing very much black into our water for cleaning our brushes, I'm going to go ahead and bring some more light pink up into our clouds. And, oh no, you know what? I take that back. We're going to paint the black down below.
Yeah.
Because
it needs to dry.
It needs to dry. So, I'm going to take my biggest brush. I'm going to take pure black. And I'm going to start on, I like to start on the left-hand side. I want to kind of come up about 2/3 of the way up into my water. Now, when we put the grass in, it's going to come up even higher than that. So about 2/3. And I'm just going to scoop down to within about 2 inches, 1.5 2 inches of the bottom. And then I'm going to let it kind of bounce back up a bit on this right-hand side. Now, we're going to fill this in. Now, this step really changes this painting really dramatically. It really, like, almost drop kicks everything else we've painted further away. It kicks it into the distance for us because it becomes very dark, very in our face. And then when we start adding details to it, you start to realize, okay, we're standing up on a cliff, and this is something we're looking a half a mile to a mile away at, rather than this is just a small thing that we're seeing. So I'm just going to fill this in. I like to kind of use choppy, more vertical brush strokes when I'm filling in rocky areas. What we got? Anybody got any questions or anything?
Nope.
Okay, that's good.
I like all the
Thank you so much for all the interaction.
Yeah.
How many likes do we have?
1.
Hey, you guys. If you're watching the video, click like, please. Seriously.
You're big on that tonight. I
Oh, you know what?
This nice part of my wave.
That's, I mean, we had actually kind of a milestone for a video.
Mm-hmm.
We had one of our videos, the Happy Elephant video.
It's a kid's painting.
Kids painting went over 1,000 views this week.
That was huge.
And I'm like, up until this quarantine thing, we were getting pretty much just our subscribers. You know? I mean, the GoBox subscribers were watching it. And so to get 1,000 views on a video,
it was awesome.
Was really cool. I mean, I was like, wow, Someone
shared it somewhere with a lot of followers.
is that considered viral yet? I don't think so, but I was like thinking, wow, that's kind of fun. But for me, that seems viral. Maybe they need to come up with a new term for that.
Viral soft. Soft viral. When it has 1,000 views.
No, I mean, like, maybe they shouldn't call it viral anymore.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay, let's do some grass.
No, we're not.
Wait. Let's paint some grass.
I mean, there might be some people that's the way they're, vapor, what do you call it? Liquid encouragement, vapor encouragement. Right.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to put this little rock on here. And it's just kind of just a little bump. All right, so for the grass, I'm going to keep using this biggest brush to start with. Now, you might decide to change to a smaller brush. I think our medium-sized brush, the round, probably wouldn't work very well for this, but the smallest brush will. Mm-hmm. If you're using a flat, like number 8, like our kit comes with. Sometimes, yeah. We kind of had a little bit of a supply chain issue for the last few weeks.
One of the lines of brushes that we have always used is no longer made by the manufacturer.
Yeah. So anyway, whatever you're using, if you're using a number 8 flat, that would work fine on edge. If you're using,
you just want a thin edge.
You just want a thin edge. But I'm just going to start by taking the brush and just kind of giving it some little flicks.
Swish and flick.
Now these I feel like the biggest brush
works good.
Is the best brush for this if your brush is in pretty good shape.
And you don't press very hard.
Yeah, you barely want to touch the brush.
Sometimes if you mix a little water with your paint too, that'll help because you'll get a finer brush stroke.
But I really like using this brush for doing foreground grass.
You use a combination.
Yeah, that works too. I mean, that's actually a really good way to do it because you can kind of get some bulk in using the bigger brush, and then you can kind of come in and
get some finer grass.
Yeah, but I think it's you have to be careful because I think it's too easy to get too caught up in trying to do every blade of grass that might be growing, and it's just not necessary to do that. Especially on like a smaller canvas like this. You do too much and it just, when you hang it on the wall, it just gets too busy when you step back from it. Yeah, see, I'm like having to think and talk at the same time. Usually pretty good at that, but no, I haven't been drinking, Melissa.
She's been. I
will be when we're done. Normally we do have a glass of wine while we're teaching, but tonight we drank all the wine last night. Alright, so that's good foreground. The rest of the foreground goes really quick once it dries, but it's going to take a few minutes to dry, and it's really easy to tell if it's dry when you've done the black. It's kind of matte when it's dry, and it's really glossy when it's wet. So there is a little tiny bit of a sheen to it when it's dry, but you can tell it's wet pretty easily just by tilting it and looking in the light, whether it's really shiny or if it's kind of settled into more of a matte tone. All right, so while that dries, I am going to go back to my medium-sized brush. I'm going to rinse it off. I'm going to dry it off. I'm going to dry it off so that I feel like there's no pigment coming along with it. And I'm going to mix up a nice light pink. And I'm going to
bring it over.
Bring it on.
It's your handiwork.
I take a little bit of white. This is dry right here, so the paint dries pretty quick. I'll mix it where this was pink before. And we're going for just really a nice, like, lighter cotton candy kind of color. I think I got it. No, I guess I'm okay. Nice lighter cotton candy. And this can sometimes look maybe too intense when we first put it on there. No, it looks just about right. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that color.
On the base of the clouds?
Yeah, just kind of smudge it in. Actually, it can streak up into some other areas too. But you don't have to put this color on real thick on your brush. In fact, you can probably hear the scratchiness of my brush. That actually does the same kind of technique like we use when we do mountains, like the kind of Bob Ross thing, where it kind of leaves some scattery kind of shapes and stuff like that. And what I mean by scatter, it's like some chatter.
Scatter chatter.
Scatter chatter. Coming soon. Scatter chatter. Sounds like an infomercial.
You would be really good at doing infomercials. It would be hysterical.
I don't know about that. But you're probably right. All right. But what it does is it leaves texture and little skips and bumps and highlights and shadows without being too solid. And I think that adds a lot of interesting little textures and stuff to it. Yeah, mix up a little bit more. The other thing you can do is you can just take some pure, heavy old phthalo red if you want more of a fiery kind of sunset. Or you can do bits of both.
I'm going to work on my Death Star.
You do that.
I was given a challenge.
Dan better be watching. He watched last time. So it wasn't last time, it was recently. You can do as much or as little of that color up there as you want. I'm happy with it like that. I kind of like the more intense color.
Borrow your brush.
But if you don't like the intense color, just add more white to it and let it be a little bit more of that pastel-y pink. It's nothing wrong with any of that. You can even do a mix of both if you want it to be really, really contrasty. But try to kind of move the brush a lot. Jenny, you moved your brush a lot when you painted your clouds.
Yes, I did.
Alright. So we're gonna next, we're getting there, guys. I know.
Almost done.
Hang in there. We're almost there. You're doing great. I can't even see what you're doing, but I know you're doing great, or else you guys would be bailing out of this video, and you aren't. Or you'd be asking a million questions, and you aren't.
Yarn.
You aren't. So, must be doing all right. Okay. So for the lighthouse, now this time of day, maybe it's not even on, so we're not going to worry about doing a light beam coming out of it. I always feel like when we've done lighthouses in the past, it's like that light beam is kind of like the make or break.
It is the make or break for sure.
And unfortunately, the line between make and break, it was a really fine line.
And it's always the last thing we do, so everybody's had all their drinks.
Yeah, and it's like, then all of a sudden it's like, wow, we just painted a racing stripe across our
across
our artwork. And so in some regards, I think, lighthouses are a fun thing to do. But the one thing that's really hard to paint is light.
Yeah.
So Thomas Kincaid was the master of painting light, I guess.
He was good at it.
Yeah.
He was good.
He was good.
I mean, he probably still paints.
He's dead.
He did die, didn't he?
Well, he probably still paints,
There's a lot of people.
I assume he probably does. I mean, once I'm gone, I'm going to paint like every day. Alright, so I'm going to highlight. I'm just going to take a little bit of white. Just run a little bit of this right down the side of my lighthouse. And I kind of put a little bit too much paint, so I'm just going to use my brush to lift a little bit of that paint off. Maybe you put too much paint on, it's okay. You can always come back and add your shadow color back on. Now, for the area where the lens is, Jenny, you got quiet all of a sudden.
It's because I'm using the small brush.
Oh. Just add a little spacer of why I thought you were kind of feeling bad about saying something about Thomas Kincaid.
I already forgot about that.
Squirrel! So I just put some white in where the lens area would be, because that's where we're just going to see a little bit of light shining through that. And I've got a little droplet of water on
the ferrule. I hate that.
I'm going to make sure that's not there. And I'm just going to take a little bit of the Stalo red. Just on the side there. Now, the other thing you can do with this little brush is you can take a little tiny bit of black and you can kind of re-enhance this railing there. And I am going to take a little bit of black now and create a little shadow that kind of comes down like so. Just adds a nice little dimensional touch to it. So that's all we have to do for the lighthouse. It's really pretty simple. I mean, if you want to add a window or something part way up, I mean, you can do anything you want at this point. If you've got a favorite lighthouse, I probably should have said this a long time ago, but if you want to, you know, you've got a lighthouse you used to go see as a kid, and you want to paint that lighthouse just because that's what is in your memory of lighthouses, then by all means you can do that if you want. Add a little bit of white on that house. But this is really kind of, we get down to this kind of point of the painting and anything goes. I mean that's kind of true the whole time. You can do whatever you want.
Anything goes, even adding a Death Star.
Yeah. I know that, like, when we've taught paintings like this before in the studio, sometimes people just leave the lighthouse off.
Yeah.
You know, it's not because they think it's too hard. It's just they like the painting minus the lighthouse.
Yeah.
Or they fell down the stairs of a lighthouse as a child and they're terrified of lighthouses. You know,
Traumatized.
Traumatized. Yeah. All right, almost done, guys.
Yep. Now we just need to do the highlights in the grass.
Highlights in the grass, and will be it. I mean, we are pretty much there. So the grass is really easy. You can use your smallest brush. You can use your medium-sized brush. I don't think you want to use your biggest brush for this. You could if you wanted to, but we're just going to take some of that pure raw sienna color, the kind of golden color, and we're just going to come in. We're not going to outline or trace or anything. We're just going to add our own new fresh grass shapes that don't quite reach up as high as the others. You kind of leave them a little bit shy.
You're using raw sienna?
Just pure raw sienna. Raw sienna. The cheerleader of paints.
Oh my god. Raw sienna.
Alright.
Give me an R.
R. Where are we going with that, Jenny? Alright.
I'm not spelling anymore. So you're doing it in the other grass.
Doing it in the other two, and again, it's not so much the individual blades that make this work. It's just a suggestion. We can really get very impressionistic with how we kind of finish this out, which is what I'm going to do. Nobody likes that much detail. Well, there's a lot of people that like that much detail, but... Alright. So what I like to do too is at the base of these bits of grass, I kind of wipe my brush off, and you can kind of
Scrumble it.
Scrumble it.
That's one of your terms.
Actually,
you didn't say it is a legit term.
It is a legit term.
When I heard you say that once, I was like, "Are you making up paint terms?" That was my chair. Really.
Yeah, yes, we have a pet moose. The pet moose is very.
We have a metal chair and a wood floor, and I always forget. Like halfway through a video, I'll scoot back and be like, "That was my chair, I swear."
We were actively shopping. We were actively shopping for a rug to put in here when all the lockdown stuff happened.
And then we felt like really bad, like going out to shop for something like a rug.
Yeah. So again, if you're not one of our regulars who subscribes to our monthly subscription box or has bought this project as an individual project and you're just stumbling along and you're liking what we do, subscribe, click like. I feel like we have to say that several times because the video is so long.
It is. Also, one of the things I wanted to mention is as we've been shipping stuff around since September, and then especially a lot in the last month, we have hit so many states. A lot of East Coast. We just shipped something to Maine. We have something going to Boston tomorrow.
I just saw that. I did a count, and it was like 15 states.
That's awesome.
But
so we want to get a big map, and
yeah.
we want to get a big map and hang it and put pins in it.
It'll go right on that wall, right over there.
Yeah, we got space for it.
The other thing is we got a new subscription box member in Wisconsin.
Awesome.
This week, so
shout out to you, Wisconsin person.
Yeah. So much of our subscription box people are people that have been into the studio, and mostly Oregon and or people that used to live here.
Mm-hmm.
We got a couple people like the Hales in Wyoming.
Shout out to the Hales.
You know, and so some of the people that have been regulars and no longer can, they really like being able to join us this way. And so next thing I'm going to do is down in through this area here. In the original painting, I'll bring it back in. This time when we went down to the coast to Yachats, I noticed that a lot of the like kind of low scrubby bushes that are shrubs, kind of creepers that grow along the shore. A lot of them have little purple flowers and little white flowers. So rather than trying to paint individual flowers, we just kind of add some of that tone in there. But the other thing is we've kind of got this seafoamy kind of tone popping up down here too as kind of our foundation color.
You can honestly add just about any color.
You can do just about anything you want. And the way I do that is I start with, rather than mixing, actually I'll show you one way that works really good that you can just kind of leave it if you're like kind of done for the night. You can kind of just take this color and just kind of
like it's sand.
Like grass and sand, dirt, whatever. You can kind of smudge it into these in-between areas. But that looks good. I mean, it can look good. But I think it looks really, really even better is if we then take a little tiny bit of our Bahama, which ours is almost dried out, and we kind of smudge it in. And I'm doing this on the canvas so that we get a lot of variation in what's going on here. You can kind of smudge it in and around these other scrubs.
You want to be careful too, because if you over detail this part too much, then you lose the lighthouse and all that. You don't want everybody's attention to be drawn just to this front area. So.
But you also want enough detail that you realize it's here.
Yeah.
You know, it's
so I went back and I put too much Bahama blue, and I went back and sort of painted a tiny bit of black over it.
That's something I have never heard you say.
What?
I used too much Bahama blue.
Ah, really?
You are the Bahama blue
queen.
You are the champion of Bahama blue. Bahama blue has you on their payroll.
I remember when you suggested that we don't get it anymore and get some other color because it kind of gets where it's been kind of hard to find. And I'm like, no, I will always have Bahama blue.
We literally had a discussion about buying a paint mixer.
To make Bahama blue?
Just so she could make her own Bahama blue. Well, a paint shaker. A chugga 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 chugga. You know, like paint stores have.
After we watched Good Mythical Morning and saw them using a paint shaker.
Good Mythical Morning.
Good.
Not a sponsor.
Mythical Morning.
They're not a sponsor yet, but they could be.
No, we saw them use a paint shaker.
That's what they always say.
Yes. They were putting all kinds of stuff in it, and it was awesome.
So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of our phthalo red and a little bit of white, mix up a little bit of pink in here, and you can add a little tiny bit of Bahama to it, so it's a little bit on the purplish side. And just kind of add some little smudges. This is really, I think this kind of area, when you're doing this kind of thing, it looks really good if it's sloppy. I don't know why, but I really feel like when you do these little foreground areas, and I think maybe this the not being too much detail, like you were just talking about, being a little bit of sloppy, gets the colors in here. If you get too much going on, you can always bring some black back in. And if you want to add some flowers, you can just add some little white dots and some little clusters. I like to do little clusters rather than... I think sometimes people will get too, like, I'm going to do a big grid work of flowers, but I think it looks better just to do some little dots here and there.
I had to catch up with you.
Well, I'm trying to get us all through here.
Yeah, I just have a few little things to add.
And again, if you get too much, I feel like I got a little bit too much of the color going in right here. That's okay, because I'm actually going to add some shadow back in for that grass. Do I need to wait for you?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to add take some black, I'm going to add some shadow back in underneath this grass. So I'm thinking of my lights coming this way. So I'm just going to...
In the shadow. I'm very proud of this.
Wow.
I accepted a challenge.
Add a shadow of your rock. Sometimes it's easier to... Like, a lot of times I think people want to leave the shadows, and I think it's easier to paint the shadows back in. Yeah.
Because then you can kind of force the direction of the light. Like, think about, where's your light bulb? Oh, it's the sun. Okay, so it's going to cast the shadow this way.
Yep. Okay, we got one more thing to do.
All right.
So the highlights on the rock.
Okay.
And the highlights on the rock are actually the exact same color we used for our sand.
And refresh my memory.
So... refresh your memory.
I think I made gray and I mixed raw sienna with it.
Yeah, but you're being a rebel tonight.
Yes. Rebel Alliance.
We've got our seafoam color. We add a little bit of our phthalo red. We're almost out of Bahama.
We have just enough.
And a little tiny bit of white.
Oh my gosh, I just see our palette on the screen.
It's crazy.
It looks like one of those pictures that you fold and you do like a psychology test.
I feel like maybe we should sell this on eBay. we'll set up a Patreon site and then we'll sell our palette sheets after each event. All right, and I'm just going to... I've got a little too much on my brush, but just kind of bounce some of this color in here. I almost got too much white on mine, but that's okay because, again, if it's too much... You can always just kind of bring some black back in. I feel like mine's a little bit too... A little bit too light. Yeah, I'm good with that. has to say. I'm happy with that. You can add a little bit of Rossian in there just to warm it up. And that, my friends,
other than signing it,
is the last thing to do other than sign it. I'm gonna do Phthalo Red. I'm just gonna do it right here. Jenny, you have your Phthalo Red is not gonna work.
I use this green seafoam, that bright green I made for my laser beam from the Death Star.
Laser beam. Jenny has her little icon that she's made. And I have one that I've made too. So, that's it. I am going to reach across here and turn this camera back on. And I'm going to turn that back on. Ready? Here we are. Hey, guys.
Here's mine.
There you go. Yeah, there's Jenny's.
It's got the Death Star blowing up.
Oh, you know what?
The lighthouse.
How about this? Let's go back to the picture-in-picture.
We always do a side-by-side.
We'll turn that back on. And I'll go ahead and put this. There's Jenny's. And that's something else, Jenny. Good job.
So I posted on, I think I told you guys in the very beginning, but I don't know if it was on the video. We had to stop and start over. I had it posted on Facebook. I'm the student in Paul's lesson tonight. What should I add to my painting? It's an ocean scene. Should I add sharks, Loch Ness Monster, or I can't remember, Sharknado, tidal wave?
Your wave turned out really
Someone
good.
suggested the Death Star blowing up the lighthouse, so that was the only suggestion, and I thought it was a really good one. So that's for you, Dan.
There you go. What was it? Yesterday was Dan's birthday. No, day before yesterday was Dan's birthday.
Oh, we'll have to ship this to him.
So there you go, Dan. Happy birthday. Anyway, thanks for joining us tonight, guys. I'm going to go back to here. I hope you guys had a great time. Sorry about the technical difficulties at the beginning, but thank you so much for letting us know that this was going on.
Yeah. Glad we have the comment feature.
Just like everything, we'd be lost without you.
Yep.
So
we would. We definitely would, especially right now. So we really appreciate all the support you guys have given us, that you've
it's been great.
Continued your subscriptions or bought the kits that we've put out. And for next month, some people have asked about watercolor in the Go box. And I'm thinking if I can pull that off, I want to do that. So if not, we'll do something else fun and add it at a later date. But it's mainly just depends on how many brushes I am able to get in stock.
And the challenge of the watercolor in the Go box itself is a little bit. It's either got to be all watercolor or all acrylic. It's really hard to.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll
figure out something.
Yeah, from a cost perspective.
If it's not in May's box, it'll come in June. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, again. Nice to paint with you. Fun to paint on a Friday night. And join us next Friday night. We'll be painting the little wood ornaments. I'll be teaching that one. And they kind of match along with the ocean theme. So that's what we'll be doing. They're fun to it's really fun to paint something tiny and small like that.
And I will play the role of Smart Alex sidekick.
Yeah. So make sure that you have your small brushes ready. Next week we won't need the biggest brush. We're just going to need a small brush and maybe a slightly larger brush. But
yeah. If you've already looked at the wood rounds, you realize that the big brush would just literally cover the whole thing in one brush stroke. Nah, it's not that small, but anyway. Thanks for joining us again. If you've just stumbled across us, I've said it several times, but
hit subscribe, like, bell, all that.
All of those things. Those are how we succeed on YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's we appreciate all the help you can give us right now.
Yep. Now we're gonna turn off these lights and go into a much cooler room because this is really hot.
With a cold beverage.
Thanks, guys.
Then, Melissa, I will be drinking.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for giving it a go with us.
See you next Friday.
Bye-bye.